To continue with our recent discussion of recent announcements, AYN Neo has announced 2 new handhelds recently. The AYN Neo Pocket DMG and the AYN Neo Pocket Micro. Basically, one device is supposed to be the successor to the Game Boy Micro, and another to be a sort of next-generation Game Boy sort of style device, taking its design cues from the DMG style Game Boys. And can I just say, I love their new sort of remake, remaster, I don't know what they're calling it, but this harkening back to classic design language for their handhelds. I just love how every device feels super retro and has that sort of classic style from game consoles and consoles of the past. It's just very visually appealing, and in some cases very comfortable because of that. So let's just jump right in. The first device they announced I want to talk about is the AYN Neo DMG. I love the design of this device. It has the full complement of buttons minus 1 analog stick, which does make playing certain games kind of annoying, but with it, the fact that it's using the same G3X Snapdragon chip found in the AYN Neo Pocket S, it should be expected to perform very well. But as I've mentioned before with that chip, it could also be incredibly underwhelming with the first generation of the G3X chips we saw in the Razer handheld from last year. And from what I've seen so far of how the current G3X2 chip is performing in the Pocket S, it's fine. It has more raw potential than the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 2 that we see in the Odin 2, but because of how driver development and optimization works, it just isn't well optimized for a lot of these emulators quite yet, and I don't like to recommend products based on what they could be in the future. So at the moment, I don't really see that being a very good value, especially considering that device is $400, $100 more expensive than the Odin 2. And this device will probably suffer from the same thing. The DMG, like I said, runs the same G3X2 chip. So at time of writing, we don't have any pricing for this device yet, but if it's anything like the other devices AYN Neo has with this same chipset, it would probably be anywhere between $350 to $400. Going to come with a beautiful OLED display, which, as anything we've seen from the Anbernic 556, it's going to be beautiful because OLED makes these classic vintage games just look fantastic. The ergonomics seem to be pretty good. It has active cooling. That's very exciting. It's just, my biggest sticking point is going to be the price. The thing that will prevent me from recommending this over some other handhelds is going to be the price, because with it being a DMG form factor, the kinds of games people are going to play on this device aren't really going to utilize all the performance that you would realistically need for those style of games. Nothing that a Miu Mini or Anbernic RG35XX Plus or Non Plus or whatever, those devices cost a fraction the amount, but they offer an amazing experience. Sure, they don't have OLED displays or anything like that, but they will offer you more than an amazing experience for any of those kinds of games you would want to play on a DMG-styled handheld. With this device being a little bit larger than your standard DMG handheld, it might not be even as portable as those other handhelds I'd mentioned before. Because one of the biggest things is with that level of performance is you don't need an exponentially large device. You don't need to have active cooling. And the device won't really get all that hot and would have amazing battery life because of the kinds of games you'd be playing. But with this only having one analog stick and having that high powerful, G3X2 chip, it just seems kind of too much for the kind of device it is. In their next device that they announced, the AYN Neo Pocket Micro, seems like it doesn't have enough performance for what it is. It has the Helio G99 SoC, which I don't have a lot of personal experience with, but from what I've seen online, it should be able to play very light GameCube and PS2 at most, and basically play anything below that, so perfectly fine N64, PSP, Dreamcast, Saturn, all that kind of stuff, but in a more Game Boy Micro style form factor. It has dual analog sticks. It has all the buttons you could possibly need to play all your PlayStation and dual stick games you could possibly need. But what limits it the most is its, Helio G99 processor. This device would be far more comfortable to play more 3D-based titles, but it almost like they are gimping this device to prevent you from sort of cannibalizing their Pocket S lineup. Once again, we don't have any pricing on this one yet. I also still love the design of this device, but with that level of performance, I wouldn't spend more than maybe $200, maybe 180 something, just because of, that level of expected performance from my understanding might not be worth that much, especially if you can start comparing it to stuff like the 556 and the Rotary Pocket 4. It just doesn't make a lot of sense if it's more expensive than those two devices, because it does the same thing while being a little bit bigger, but offers so much more performance. Both these devices are incredibly exciting. I love that AYN Neo is really sort of diving into the more emulation and Android side of their handhelds, because they've been quite big in the PC handheld space, but with finally releasing the Pocket S, which has been announced for God knows how long at this point, it has not been their main priority. But with this recent announcement of and showing off all these handhelds, it's very exciting. I love that this Android handheld scene is really blowing up in a big way, and some major players are making some really high quality devices. It just might take them a while to figure out how much these things should cost and how much power do they really need. Because for the device that needed the most power, or realistically could use more power, the Micro doesn't have it, and the device that doesn't realistically need that much power, the DMG styled one, has just an inordinate amount of power that it realistically won't really need, unless you're buying it as sort of like your version of an analog pocket, which is a very expensive device that only plays Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Super Nintendo, and whatnot, 16 and 8-bit games effectively. I personally would never buy something like that because it is just insanely expensive for what you are buying it for realistically, because you don't need that much to achieve an amazing experience. And if this DMG style handheld is going to be the same price or maybe a little bit cheaper because of, its different layout to the Pocket S, it still realistically won't be worth it, because you could be better served. Granted, it'd be a better overall experience, but $150 better? No, not really to me at the very least. And like I said, that's speculation on the price. It's just comparing how they've priced things before in other devices that they have with the same chipset. So take my opinion on pricing with a grain of salt. I'll update down in the comments if I discover or learn any more things about the pricing. But as of the moment right now, there is no information, and just using speculation and basing my opinion on what they've done before with the G3X2 in the Pocket S, that device is $400, and this DMG handheld will have the same chipset, and I'm inclined to assume that it would be priced similarly, maybe a little bit cheaper due to less buttons or the less ease of functionality for 3D-based games. But it's almost like they have these two high-end options for 3D and 2D games, but they don't really have a good option for cheaper 3D games and 2D games, but just combining the two in the Pocket Micro. Would love to hear what you guys think about this. Are you super interested in these two devices? Were you just waiting to buy one of them? Has this video convinced you maybe you don't really need either of these two devices and you might get something else because it might be cheaper or overall better value for you? I would love to hear what you guys think about this down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All the other social media garbage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.